Association. For those individuals who don't participate in CSPAR programs but choose to participate in Recreation Department programs, we provide inclusion support, whether direct staff support or inclusion training, bully prevention, behavior management, and other services for the recreation staff at the Recreation Department as well. CSPAR gained its 12th member district or entity back just 2 years ago with Lamont Park District, which you look at that and think, boy, that's a long way down the road there. And it is a little bit of a trek, but it actually ties to quite a few of our members. And it has had a very positive impact with the number of facilities that they can provide for us, as well as the financial resources that are pooled together, just like the other members have done. We also have a gymnastics gym that our gymnastics team can call its own. And we also have 2 pools available year-round, as well as a new horseback riding facility, which is not a part of the park district, but is part of their community, and provides excellent programs. When I started at CSPAR, there were about 5 of us full-time, and now there are 14. And last year, to meet the needs of individuals in CSPAR programs as well as inclusion programs, CSPAR issued 227 W-2 forms. So it certainly has grown over the years. Our member contributions in general, that's the tax money that Ingrid, thank you very much, sends our way periodically throughout the year. Our member contributions have stayed almost stable, like to the dollar, for the last 9 years. And that's been in part by generating program revenue to offset the need for as much tax money. Member contributions this year are budgeted to be 60.7% of our revenue budget, and it has stayed between 60 and 62% now for the last 5 years, and that's down from 71.5% 9 years ago. So that's been, I think, a positive change. The lower 70% range is typical of special recreation associations. And our aggregate member contributions, I mentioned, have stayed flat. There was a spike the year that Lamont came in and brought their member contributions, which a good portion of that was basically used to lower everyone else's rates. So it helped equalize that as well. Western Springs contributes almost 6% of the member contributions total of the aggregate. And this year, in 2017-18, your contributions are right at $18,000 less than they were 5 years ago. So that, as the Lamont factor and the program revenue factor has definitely had a positive impact there. We try to raise funds with fund development activities, golf outings, concerts, and the like, and also grants. We recently have received for the 2nd year in a row the DuPage Medical Group's Charitable Fund funded our Commit to Be Fit program for our Eagles program, which has been an extraordinary fitness opportunity for helping redirect and realign thinking on how to be fit, be smart. So we appreciate that. Hopefully you see for the record. Stay tuned for monthly updates. I'd like to introduce Matthew Corso right here in the front row. Matt is my successor. In a week and a half, this show is his. And so I've been working with Matt. I've known Matt for 20-some years, and I've been working with Matt for 14 years. The agency's in great shape, and I'm looking forward to what CSPAR is going to continue to grow and become. So, Matt, good luck to you, and get acquainted with the good people here in Western Springs. They're good folks. And Ray and Tracy, your support over, where'd Tracy get to? Oh, there he is, over there in the corner. Your support over the years has been second to none. Ray's a great board member. He represents your community. He challenges you with good questions and makes sure that you're doing things that you should be doing for the right reasons, and I appreciate that. And it's been an honor and a privilege to serve your residents, and I look forward now to figuring out what I want to do when I grow up. So that I'll take questions if you have them.
I don't know that we have any questions, but this show is not quite over. As President Gallagher, I respectfully request that you read the proclamation that is found in our packet in honor of Miss Susan Friend.
So we have drafted a proclamation honoring Susan Friend. Tracy actually drafted it, and I'm honored to read it tonight. Whereas Susan Friend was hired by CSPAR in 1978 to serve people with special needs, and whereas she was instrumental in the overall growth and development of the CSPAR programming and organization for educational, recreational, and cultural activities of its patrons and families. And whereas Western Springs has been a member in good standing since 1997, and whereas between 2006 and 2017, she served as executive director, setting the tone and providing direction that resulted in extensive and expansive programs, creative and functional facilities, increased community outreach and fundraising, and fiscal responsibility. And whereas she sought outside partnerships and additional membership for the association, thus improving special needs opportunities for the 12 communities making up the C-SPAR family. And whereas the village has determined that through her service to Western Springs, Susan Friend will leave a constructive, positive, and lasting legacy. And now, therefore, we, the members of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Western Springs, Cook County, Illinois, acting by and through the village president, do hereby proclaim that by passage of this resolution, the village gratefully acknowledges the many years of honorable service to C-SPAR and the community of Western Springs. And in witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the Village of Western Springs, Cook County, Illinois, to be affixed this 26th day of June, 2017. So, Susan, let me hand this to you. I would like to say thank you on behalf of the board and all of our community members. Thank you so much for all that you have done for our residents who have special needs. It's truly remarkable what you have done throughout your career, and we appreciate it.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving on, Deputy Chief Albrecht, we have the recognition of Sergeant Phil LaChurco.
Good evening, Madam President, Mr. Higgins, Board of Trustees. Thank you for your time. Tonight we're here to announce that Sergeant Philip LaChurco is the recent graduate of the Northwestern University School of Police of Staff and Command. Phil currently serves as our afternoon sergeant and is one of our veteran officers. Sergeant LaChurco was one of the 45 students that attended the 10-week class, which began in January this year and ended in mid-May. The program has been in existence since 1983, and it has graduated thousands of students nationally and internationally. The school provides advanced college instructions in many topics, including management theory, organizational theory, human resources, budgeting, and staffing allocation. Having recently attended the same class myself, I know what a commitment it is and some of the frustrations of sending us old guys back to class. At this time, I would like to congratulate Phil on a job well done. Congratulations, Phil.
Sergeant LaChurco, on behalf of the board, thank you for continuing your education and professional development. That's something we highly regard, and we appreciate you carving out the time. I'm sure it's not easy to find the time to attend the school and graduate. So I know that all the knowledge you gained will help our department and our community. Thank you very much.
Turn around, guys. They want to get a picture. So.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the water system presentation. Director Supert.
Thank you. So what I want to go over tonight is just a brief overview for the new board regarding some of the work that's been going on for the past 2 years regarding the water system. The Public Works and Water Committee has asked us to kind of give a summary update as some of the work that's been going on, especially in light of some of the issues we've been having recently with the water production system. So to kind of start off, just a quick overview of what our water production system is. Here you can kind of see a quick overview map. The village is served by 3 wells. We have 2 deep wells, wells number 3 and number 4, which you can see on this map, are the primary sources of water within the village, and those both go to the village's water treatment plant. Well number 1 is a shallow well, which is used primarily for emergency purposes. We have had to use those recently in the past couple of years due to some issues with one of our deep wells that was down for maintenance. All the water in the village goes to the village's water treatment plant, where it's treated from our 2 deep wells, where it gets treated and then sent to distribution. Once in distribution, we have 2 storage facilities. We have the elevated tank near Spring Rock Park, and just off the map, unfortunately due to the formatting of the screen here, we have the standpipe, which is located near Lyons Township High School. So the village's system on the whole is an aging system as part of our overall infrastructure. Throughout our distribution system, we have main that connects everybody within town, and there are some issues with that main for various different reasons. We have approximately 52 miles of pipe within the community. Of that, approximately 23 miles, or 46% of that, was constructed prior to 1937. That basically what you see on that map, everything in red is pipe that is 90 years old or older within town. We are an old community. We're an old community within Cook County, and we have old infrastructure that's kind of in the ground. Also, our wells are also constructed during the mid-1950s and 60s, and the water treatment plant, which was originally constructed in the 1920s, was recently modeled in 1923. One of the kind of, thoughts that a lot of people have is, we built this new water treatment plant, and we're thinking, wow, we're done. Everything's good to go. Really, the water treatment plant project that we completed in 2013 is the start. It's addressing one of the core components of our distribution system, but most of the rest of our water distribution system does need to be looked at and addressed. And we are in the process of working through a lot of that enhancement and reconditioning of our distribution system. This kind of most recently started after the completion of the water treatment plant in February 9th of 2015, when the village board appointed the Well Number 5 study group. That group consists of village staff, former water study group members, and members of the infrastructure commission. And they were tasked with the responsibility to look throughout the community and see what locations within the town could be suitable for a new well. We knew even at that time that well number 1 was going to be problematic and it wouldn't be able to be run through the RO plants, and that we needed to do something in the future to address that. That report was published under the review of the Infrastructure Commission in October of 2015, and it identified and looked at a number of locations in town and identified the best possible location based on that preliminary analysis. That document identified Field Park as a preliminary location that seemed to be the best location from all the ones that were looked at, based on its location north of the tracks, proximity to the water treatment plant, kind of area available for construction. That document also kind of identified a 5 to 7 year planning process to kind of move forward and continue investigations on a new well. This is just kind of a quick view. The location in Field Park has not been established. There are multiple kind of areas within that green space there that could be used, but its proximity to the railroad tracks puts it away from a lot of other residential areas in town. Most of the other parks and other locations that were looked at were much closer to residential areas. You can also see from this kind of diagram here, the location, it could easily run a main down Hillgrove Avenue to reconnect that back up to the existing water treatment plant near Hillgrove and Johnson Avenue. Following up from that, the Infrastructure Commission kind of continued to look at this topic, and in May of 2016, they produced recommendation 16-01, which basically has 2 main components to it. The first was that it does say that based on the report, they concur that the Field Park location appears to be the most feasible, and from there they recommended that the public, or the board should then begin looking at engineering operations to do what we call an interference test for that site to make sure that, hey, it wouldn't impact the other wells, and truly do a geological study to determine that that's the best location for a well. At the same time, the Public Works and Water Committee also wanted to look at and determine if there were any locations or any options for well number 1 that could be feasible to address the water that comes out of that. So well number 1 water, as most of us know, is a shallow well. It's much harder. It has a higher amount of iron content. Because of the construction components of the water treatment plant, well number 1 can't be brought through the treatment plant as is. So basically, whenever it does need to run through emergency situations, we chlorinate it and send it to distribution on a supplementary status. Through our research, we were able to find that there is a company based out of Loves Park, Illinois, that could do a temporary treatment system. It basically would be on a flatbed, and through our analysis, basically over the past year, we determined that under an emergency scenario, this treatment option could be feasible. We tried to determine if there were other options within the Midwest or within the United States just in general to see what sort of other capabilities we might have. There were some additional firms that had similar sort of components based out of Texas and Louisiana, but we determined based on their distance, they wouldn't be able to really serve the village if we needed something within a short time period, which would be the scenario in which we would probably need this equipment for well number 1. The solution that Water Surplus has is basically a mobile membrane solution. It's not quite RO, but it is a membrane solution which would be mounted on a 53-foot trailer. It is a partial treatment option, so the output quality from this would not be the full softened treatment solution that you would see from our regular RO treatment plant. The goal for that would be to help lessen the hardness and iron that you would see coming out of well number 1. The treatment train that they have would be 400 GPM from a single platform. The well itself outputs about 750 GPM. So depending on your use case scenarios and the demand and the type of year, there is a percentage of that water from well number 1 that would be bypassed and still go into the distribution system, whereas 400 gallons of that 400 GPM would go through this train and then also go into the reservoir. This system would require modifications to the current water treatment plant to be able to bring it in through the piping system and then into the reservoir. We're currently in the process now with Baxter and Woodman Engineering to determine what those modifications may entail. Also happening during this process, the village has been exploring an IEPA loan process to address not just these well issues, but other broader distribution improvements. Through this last year's budget cycle, those of you who are participating in that, you are well aware of kind of the process we've gone through to identify some of the infrastructure improvements that we need moving forward. In that budget process, we had an out-year identified, capital identified for our loan application process. And we also paired that up with some of the research we did this past fall with the roadway referendum. It would make sense that, you know, if you're redoing the road on certain portions of the street in town, that you want to do the infrastructure underneath that to address that at the same time. As part of that research process, where we identified some of the water main and lined it up with the road, these are just kind of two brief exhibits from some of the internal reports that we worked through this budget process. One of the main targets that we do for water main replacements, or what measurements we use to address water main, is 4-inch water main. 4-inch water main in town is some of the oldest main that we have in town. It also is the smallest, which means it has the lowest capacity in terms of providing fire protection. There are many cases where it isn't able to provide what the ISO fire protection rating of around 1,000 GPM. And those are some of the target areas we want to address first whenever we're doing any sort of water main improvements. The map you see on the left is the 4-inch water main that we have remaining within the community. Pair that up on the right, this is a PCI, which is a pavement condition index rating that the village completes on an annual basis. This is the 2016 one that shows the ratings of the streets. And this map may be familiar to those of you who saw our roadway referendum documents. What we did is we basically kind of paired these two documents up through some of our research and said, okay, where do we have some of the worst streets in town in terms of that rating, and where do we have some of this 4-inch water main? And that was one component that we used to kind of identify some of the potential projects for water main improvement. Also, as part of our analysis, we took a look at water main breaks within the village. And we have very good data about where the water main breaks are, and we put this into our GIS system. And we were able to run what we call a hotspot analysis. So a hotspot analysis is essentially a statistical analysis that says, where are certain breaks occurring on frequent portions of the pipe in town based on their frequency and their proximity to each other. There are kind of three main areas that were identified through the hotspot analysis. You have a large section of main on Ridgewood Drive in the south section of town, a smaller section in Springdale, and then there is a hotspot over on Hillgrove Avenue through the main section of town. That section in particular was actually not a distribution main. It's the transmission main from well number 4 to the water treatment plant. Most of the breaks on there were a little bit of just growing pains for when we were bringing the new water treatment plant online. Mm-hmm. We had some issues with the automation at that time, which caused a little bit of a statistical anomaly. But that main is old in and of itself, and we absolutely should consider some rehabilitation to that main in the future as well. Tied in with a lot of this, and I'm only going to briefly touch on this, is other projects in the town, namely sewer improvements. this isn't going to directly tie into the water main improvements, but it's another thing we need to consider when we're thinking about just overall infrastructure improvements in the town. The village's water and sewer fund is that. It's a combined fund, so it's not separate funds for water and sewer. The revenue the village receives from our water and sewer rate goes to both of those projects. If you recall, back in 2015, the village completed the Ridgewood Infrastructure Report, which looked at a number of issues within Ridgewood to address mainly stormwater, but also look at the roadway as well as a number of other improvements in there. Ridgewood itself does have some unique water infrastructure problems, mainly due to the cul-de-sacs, which create dead ends in the pipe. Dead ends in any sort of water main pipe create stale water situations, which can cause some taste and odor quality issues in those specific sections of town. So it's just that consideration when we look at some of this infrastructure from a broader picture that you have these sewer projects that are going to be hanging out there as well. From all that, as we came out of the budget process from last year, the village was working with Baxter & Woodman Associates again on our IEPA loan. We completed a project development report in March of this year. And basically that project development report is a list of the projects we are looking to do through an IEPA loan, actually through multiple IEP loans, through a roughly 5-year time span. In that report, we identified improvements to both of our water storage facilities, the elevated tank and the standpipe, various water main replacement projects, which ties back into that break data, as well as the 4-inch water main identified. And then there is in there the possible well number 5. Project engineering for the 2008 projects, which at this point are repainting the village's standpipe by LT and water main replacement on Clausen Avenue in Field Park, are going to be beginning sometime this summer, and we'll start beginning more detailed engineering work on that, probably later this fall. So that's like a really, I understand it's a very quick overview, but that's kind of basically what the village has been working on over the past 2 years since we've kind of come out of the water treatment plant process, and where we're kind of moving forward with some of the capital improvements that we are working on. And I'll open it up for any questions if the board member has regarding the water infrastructure.
So Matt, could you just clarify the distinction between the road referendum that we recently passed and then the sort of water sewer rates that we see as residents, the $12 per thousand?
Sure.
And how, what you kind of went over with the IEPA loan, sort of where that falls and how you try to coordinate the two?
Sure. Yeah, so the village's road projects are primarily paid through our capital fund. You have the motor fuel tax fund that brings in revenue to pay for those street improvements. And over the past 10 years or so, we've had some roadway referendum funds, which we've been using for roadway improvements. I believe the previous road referendum that the village passed was 2008, and we expended those funds to do a number of capital improvements for roadway. Many of those projects did have some water main improvements on them separately. Woodland Avenue in Old Town was one of those projects off the top of my head that I recall. Those funds are kind of wholly separate from any sort of water or sewer projects and the funds that get tied into those. The roadway referendum specifically, that funds, because it was passed by referendum, can only be used for roadway improvements. Tie that in then, when you look at the water and sewer fund, that is an enterprise fund that the village has, and those funds are basically only from the water and sewer rates, is not supplemented through any other means, through property taxes or anything like that. So it's that water and sewer rate which kind of completely funds any sort of underground infrastructure improvements within the village. And then when the village does its planning, that's where we do a look at both of the projects, look at where our infrastructure asset management is, and we try to plan our projects based around that, based on the severity of both where our data shows the water and sewer areas are, as well as the roadway fund.
Trustee, there's one little caveat to that, and that's the difference between combined sewers, storm sewers, and sanitary sewers. You actually can use the roadway money for storm sewers that service the roadway. So there are some sewers that, but they're not a real problem for the most part. So, although we're going to have a major one on Central Avenue here in a year or two. but that will essentially be part of the roadway project that the federal government is hopefully going to pay for most of.
Anybody else?
My one question is, are we going to open it up for residents to ask questions, or this?
Well, I thought that's for the July 20th Q&A, correct?
Yeah, we'll
This
have a
was-
deeper conversation. If anybody has questions about the broader history, I know we have a lot of residents in town who perhaps were not residents in 2008, maybe through 2011 when we constructed the RO plant. Now, maybe a lot of people have questions about the RO plant just in general. But I am open to questions if anybody has any questions they want answered about, past 2 years, kind of some of our infrastructure planning process on the whole.
Jim?
I just had one question about the funding for the.
Yeah, use the microphone.
You're on TV, you have to be up here.
Is there any change in
The budgeting process for, I know when we were redoing the roads before, we were covering them with the tax from the state, I forgot the name of it.
Motor fuel tax?
Motor fuel tax, and then we also had to kick in, money from the village to do that. Except those roads that we were able to get monies from, other federal agencies for,
Sure.
like whatever, the railroad and all these other ones. But I wonder now, is the when we do a new road, is the water mains, is the water money coming, is the referendum money going to pay for the main and all the road?
Sure. No, so the referendum funds, and as far as I know, the motor fuel tax funds, if those are used, cannot be used directly for any sort of water main improvements, because those are separate capital funds in our budget. Each of those separate funds have to pay for that respective infrastructure on its own. And when we do our budgeting process, we try to account for that when we do our plan.
Yeah, I was wondering, when I was a trustee, did we have more capital improvements into using capital improvement money into the water mains, or is I just not remembering correctly?
No,
don't
we
recall
used,
exactly
we
which
used water
projects.
fund.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was water
It was
fund
always
excluded?
water
It always
fund,
was.
yeah.
I just don't recall offhand which
Correct,
projects
Madam
we actually
Finance
did during that time
Director.
period.
Yeah, the water main stuff has always been financed
Yeah,
by.
yeah. But the referendum, we can't actually use referendum funds, road referendum funds for water funds. We actually have to
Okay.
check.
Thanks.
Does anyone else have any questions of Director Subert?
I have a question. Matt, this membrane solution trailer.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have to use the mic. I'm sorry, I didn't. I'm still getting used to the voice.
The camera on me? I mean, this membrane solution trailer, is that feasible? Is that an idea? Is that something that we've
Sure.
looked into? Can it be expanded to, can you find one that can do the 750 gallons per minute?
Yeah, so the largest capacity one we've been able to find is the 400 GPM. Our preliminary analysis, Superintendent Erin Duffy, she did a very lengthy memo which she presented to the Infrastructure Commission, I think around April of this past year, and I can circulate it to the new board members. To determine that it is technically feasible to do that program. One of the things that we've really been looking at are a couple different things associated with that. One is kind of what is going to be the cost to make that connection into a water treatment plant to bring that temporary solution in there. We don't know what that cost is going to be. One of the things that the board may have to eventually address is, hey, if it's a few $100,000s or something, is that a cost we want to invest for something based on we don't know what necessarily the frequency will be. There's a cost associated with renting the equipment.
We have leased, or would we be purchasing it, lease to own? I mean, how?
It's you basically rent it for the time period that you need it. So this would be truly a solution for the brief periods, 1 to 2 months, when you have a well down for maintenance or some other sort of reason, kind of an emergency situation when you might need to supplement with well number 1. We wouldn't be able to own the equipment really. There's a lot of issues kind of in terms of maintenance and upkeep of any sort of membrane solution. Typically they have to be flushed frequently. You can't really store them dry or anything like that. So there's some things that we did look at as part of that memo. The other thing that kind of comes into play is because it's only going to be treating 400 GPM, you're not going to be getting the quality that you see from the LPRO system from the water treatment plant. And that is a little bit of a judgment call is, hey, do we determine that to be good enough? Is that acceptable for these emergency situations or not? And that's something we'll have to kind of work through. The data is in the memo that was brought to the board back in April. And it does show that those iron hardness levels would be higher than what's coming out of the water treatment plant under normal operations, but they would also be lower than what we may have saw when we had to use well number 1 directly to distribution.
Director Super, I may have missed this. With the limitations on the output of that process, is it possible to daisy chain or tag team it with 2?
We did look at that. It really comes down to a cost and size issue because each train on the platform is about 53 feet long. And it would be some additional piping. That was one of our fairly early first analysis, and that was looked at kind of early on to be cost prohibitive from the infrastructure commissions. You were looking at, I believe, over $200,000 roughly for the startup and kind of assemblage, mobilization costs with that unit, and then you were looking at perhaps over $100,000 per month to run those units if you had 2 of them set up.
Then one other question. For the forum that's going to be on July 22nd, will you be able to better...
July 20th.
Oh, sorry, July
Yeah.
20th. Thanks. Will you be able to better address the issue around well number 4 and the shoe fly? Or
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Thank you, Matt. Very thorough report. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to new business. Entertain a motion for item number 5.
Yes, Madam President, it's my pleasure to make a motion to adopt or approve Resolution 17-2388, authorizing and approving the execution of an employment agreement by and between the Village of Western Springs and Ingrid S. Belkme.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Roll call vote. Clerk Fitzgerald, may we have a roll call vote?
Yes. Trustee Hansen,
Aye.
Trustee Timmick,
Aye.
Trustee Allen.
Well, I thought the process could have been done a little bit differently, but I am excited about Ingrid, and I think she'll do a great job, and I do wish her the best, so aye.
Trustee Rudolph is absent. Trustee Sifferman.
Aye.
Trustee Tyrrell.
Aye.
The motion passes. Congratulations. We are... As sad as we are to see Pat Higgins go, we are equally as excited to see you come on board, Ingrid. Thank you. Okay. Explanation of the omnibus voting procedure. The Illinois state statutes allow a municipality to collectively vote on a group of ordinances, resolutions, and other motions, such as awards of contract, appointments, etc. This is known as an omnibus vote. All the items contained on the omnibus vote list have been previously discussed by the President and Board of Trustees on at least one occasion, and often on several occasions. By placing them on the omnibus vote list, a single vote may be taken to approve them. A trustee may remove any item from the list and have it discussed and voted on separately prior to the omnibus vote. Is there any such request this evening? Then, moving on, Trustee Timmick.
President Gallagher, I move that the following motions as contained on the meeting agenda for June 26, 2017 be adopted and or approved under an omnibus vote. Agenda item number 6, approval of the minutes of the meetings of May 22nd and June 12, 2017 as read. Agenda item number 7, ordinance number 17-2895, ascertaining prevailing rate of wages for laborers, workers, and mechanics employed on public works projects in the Village of Western Springs. Agenda item number 8, ordinance number 17-2896, amending Title IV Liquor Control, Chapter 1, Alcoholic Liquor, Section 4-1-10A, 2 of the Western Springs Municipal Code of 1997 as amended relative to the number of Class B full-service restaurant with a patron bar liquor licenses which can be issued in the Village of Western Springs, Cook County, Illinois. Suzanne Floric, Inc., doing business as Salty Fig Kitchen and Pantry for the 909 Burlington Avenue property. Agenda item number 9, ordinance 17-2897, amending Title IV, Liquor Control, Chapter 1, Alcoholic Liquor, Section 4-1-10A7 of the Western Springs Municipal Code of 1997, as amended relative to the number of Class G fine wine, premium spirits, beer, and gourmet food store premium spirits, beer, and wine only liquor licenses, which can be issued in the Village of Western Springs, Cook County, Illinois. Suzanne Florek, Inc., doing business as Salty Fig Kitchen and Pantry for the 909 Burlington Avenue property. Agenda item number 10, ordinance number 172898, amending Title IV, Liquor Control, Chapter 1, Alcoholic Liquor, Section 4-1-10A8, limitation on number of licenses of the Western Springs Municipal Code of 1997, as amended relative to the number of Class H outdoor liquor cafe liquor licenses, which can be issued in the Village of Western Springs, Cook County, Illinois. Suzanne Florek, Inc., doing business as Salty Fig Kitchen and Pantry for the 909 Burlington Avenue property. Agenda item number 11, motion to approve a license and license agreement for a temporary use permit for temporary use of a public right-of-way relative to Suzanne Florek, Inc., doing business as Salty Fig Kitchen and Pantry, located on the public sidewalk adjacent to 909 Burlington Avenue, Western Springs, Illinois. Agenda item number 12, motion to approve the following board and commission appointments. Appointment of Peter Glimko as Chair of the Plan Commission for a 3-year term to expire in December of 2019. Appointment of Jocelyn Brumbaugh as member of the Plan Commission for a 3-year term to expire in June 2020. Item C, appointment of Tom Kelleher as Chair of the Infrastructure Commission for the balance of his term to expire in June 2018. Item D, reappointment of Dan Ruzick as member of the Infrastructure Commission for a 3-year term to expire in June 2020. Item E, appointment of Brian Johnson as a member of the Infrastructure Commission for a 3-year term to expire in June 2020. And finally, item F, appointment of Sean Murphy as member of the Infrastructure Commission for a 3-year term to expire in June 2020. Agenda item number 13, motion to approve the appointment of Michael Chomiak as village prosecutor.
Is there a second?
I will second.
All in, oh, that's this chair. Roll call vote, please.
President Gallagher,
Aye.
Trustee Hansen,
Aye.
Trustee Timick,
Aye.
Trustee Allen,
Aye.
Trustee Rudolph is absent, Trustee Sifferman,
Aye.
Trustee Tyrrell.
Aye.
And President.
Oh, she went
She
first.
did.
She had, got it. Okay, good.
Okay, the omnibus vote passes. Thank you. Is there any other business? No, moving on then to our reports. Monthly financial report. Trustee Timick. This is all you.
I'm on a roll tonight, yeah. Former trustee Horvath left, so the pressure's off here. Thank you, President Gallagher. Tonight I'll give you an update on our monthly financial situation specific to the month of May.
Thank you.
So I'll go over some of the information in different funds, give some information and updates on the performance, and a couple other items as well. And as former trustee Horvath always said, thanks to Director Turi for her help in preparing this report. Overall, things look to be in good shape. Specific to the general fund, we are operating at a surplus of about $468,000. This is due to the fact that we have been collecting our property taxes and those are coming in. We actually saw improvement or continued positive results relative to our sales tax. They were 5% higher than last year for the same period. We also have seen a slight downturn in building permits for the year in total, but there was a spike in May, which showed a nice increase there, and that's typical with the start of the summer building season. Overall expenditures are on target, and there are $249,956 of encumbrances commitments, which are to be paid at a later date. Okay. The water sewer fund, actually some good news here. We are actually seeing a surplus here of $521,000 for the month of May. That's good news for a 1 month's performance, but just to remind everybody that that is still operating against an overall deficit, so that's helping to take that overall deficit down, so some good news there. Consumption billed in May was 2% less, or about 500,000 gallons less than the same time period the year prior. Police pension, also good news here too, where we had seen some unfavorable performance over last year. Actually here we've seen now that the police pension is operating at about $997,000 surplus. May's performance was 1.13%, better than the same period the year prior, with a 10.78% year-to-date return. So good news with the police pension fund.
Yes.
Just some other info to touch on. We are running pretty much normal for expenditures versus revenue, considering where we are in the year. Our expenditures this point in the year are at about 43.3% of expected total budget, and our revenues are at about 47%. So things are running pretty even there. And then just lastly, more of a point of information, Director Turry thought it might be a good thing to mention this in case anybody had some concerns, either on the board or with the residents around any sort of a potential state shutdown, which might lead to less funds coming in for the village. That's specifically why we have the cash reserves that we have in place, which I think we 3 months cash reserve, and then also the special purpose fund, which could be allocated if need be. So we are saving some away for a rainy day if need be. And I think that concludes the May financial report, and I'll make a motion to approve the report as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Clerk Fitzgerald, roll call vote, please.
President Gallagher,
Aye.
Trustee Hansen,
Aye.
Trustee Timick,
Aye.
Trustee Allen,
Aye.
Trustee Rudolph is absent, Trustee Sifferman,
Aye.
Trustee Tyrrell.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to my report. With the appointment of Mike Chomak as our prosecutor, we say goodbye to Dan Madigan. He has served the village well over the past 5 years, and I'd like to publicly thank him for his service. And that's all I have. Manager Higgins?
Just one thing with the, I guess this last bill run closes out the 6 months, to follow up on Trustee Timick's report, the 6th month of the fiscal year. Director Torrey and Director Valkby and I will be sitting down in the next couple of weeks, and we should have a little, even more detailed analysis about where we think we are in terms of revenue and expenses through this point of the year.
Okay.
Hopefully by the July meeting.
And we should know maybe more where the state is going, or?
Hopefully.
Yeah.
How's that?
Thank you. Anything
That's all,
else?
Madam President.
Thank you. Village Attorney Jerusik?
No report tonight.
Thank you. So there's no need tonight for executive session, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, ladies and gentlemen, I've never known anyone to oppose that motion. But before we actually do adjourn, I wanted to recognize our scout in the audience. Thank you so much for attending our meeting tonight. We are your representatives at the local level, the smallest level of village. We're just like your parents, but we volunteer our time and efforts here to basically make sure your streets are clean and your garbage is picked up. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to talk to us after the meeting. We'd be happy to answer any questions. Thanks for your attendance. And now we stand adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.